First comment, where's the high tower?
That is gonna be the first comment for sure. And where's this one, and where's that one, where's that one?
Why is the high tower not here? I mean, everyone wants to know.
Where's the high tower LT, Butters? Come on.
Here's our high tower review. Check it out. I feel like bike reviews have gotten not stale, but I think people really want to know how things stack up compared to one another. And the reason why we're changing things up is to address that concern. By doing some back-to-back testing, we're able to really feel out comparative differences between the bikes and ultimately give you guys a better understanding of how they work compared to each other.
These bikes should be one bike that you can own and do almost anything on. People are going to take these to bike parks, pedal up, do everything, so we want to see what they are like closer to the limit.
Brandon would have a harder time riding an absolutely terrible bike down the hill. I think I might have a little less self-preservation.
Oh! I once saw Steve huck a test bike that we had with, I don't even know, it probably had a 120 mil stem on it, like 680 bars, just sending it, and in Utah, like it was no big deal. I, on the other hand, was like, I need to swap out half of the components on this thing to make it rideable. I think that the 5 bikes that are here today represent a really good sample of long travel 2090 category. We can't race them all, but what we're able to do today is give you guys a really good sample of some old bikes that kind of set benchmarks along the way, some popular brands, as well as some upcomers that might change the game or surprise you in some ways.
We're not fit enough to race them all. 5 bikes, kind of the limit for a lot of good, consistent runs.
You know, 5 years ago when we were doing this, we had a whole fleet of handlebars on the stems. We were changing tires occasionally, all kinds of stuff. But now they show up, and aside from maybe cutting down the bars, you're good to go. Like, and that's kind of like a worst case scenario. You know, it's pretty rad.
This is why I'm so happy there's like almost downhill tires on this.
These really are the bruisers of the long travel category too. Some phenomenal components on all of them is really what makes it a bruiser. Whether that's coil sprung suspension, tires that are worth their salt and actually have a decent casing and some knobs to them. Half the bikes have codes on them. I mean, these things are made to go fast and plow over some stuff.
Look pretty good. It's got the one-sided thing and the shocks like kind of offset. I think it's pretty cool. But they did more work to make this stuff like line up, and it looks good. Looks like they thought about it a lot.
I'm actually really excited to try the Orbea because it's kind of the wild card in this whole equation. We got the benchmark, we got the newcomer here, and a couple tried and true. Plus the Evil, of course, is just like time to get rowdy on that thing, holy cow.
I guess I'm kind of surprised that any bike would come stock with an 11.6. I think it's rad that they sent one because like Terman and I were about the same weight, go about the same speed, so you can make it work for us, and we don't usually get to do something like this for a test. If you buy this bike, you don't really care about climbing. You want 2 descend modes, that's how it should be. The Trek's cool because like they have, I think they're like specialized, you know, in size and ability, and they've got cool features on their frame, but they're more hidden. Like their cable stuff in here to hold them tight, like that's sweet.
I mean, the only aluminum bike in the room here is the Sentinel, and it's known to be a pretty heavy bike. So, in my mind, that was going to be the Haas.
I own a Sentinel with slightly different suspension and parts. My bike is not light. I don't make it to be light. I thought it would be the heaviest for sure, being that all the others were carbon, but it was not the heaviest. It's become like somewhat popular to hate Specialized or the big brands sometimes, but I'm so proud of Specialized for some of the specs on their bike here. They're going like all in for downhill performance, and it's the heaviest in the whole test because of the tires. It's got the burliest tires and the heaviest weight, but it's cool. I kind of think they're going away from a spec sheet to what really works.
So in the classic downhill saddle position, you always cock the front end up. And the reason you do that is just so you can kind of get around your saddle a bit better. And I think that what they've come up with is pretty novel. As Steve was saying though, complexity is definitely a possible concern there. Yeah, so first we're going to try just open mode climbing performance, with compression circuits wide open or whatever you would descend in. And then we're going to flip these little switches, whatever the bikes have, and see how things improve. So, game on. Is my heart beating really fast? It's incredible traction, but you need a lot of effort to just keep it moving. I think the best approach on it is slow and low, kind of grinding your way up. Switching to the firmer setting does make a noticeable difference. Obviously it gets much firmer on the load. It almost seems like it slows the rebound down a bit too, which helps keep it more controlled.
I feel like I'm on top of that bike, just like doo-doo-doo, just like can pedal up over whatever. And it doesn't get bogged down. It's easy to accelerate again.
Yeah, it certainly has just a much firmer feel. Still active, but nowhere near as active as like a coil shock, but if you're looking for all-around trail use pedalability, like this guy takes the cake for sure.
Do the dogs approve?
I think they're booing. Climb mode's, I think, a little better as far as making the bike feel a little more lively, but like a couple little rocks where it like bumps your tire up over the like loose over hard pack, it like just slips a little bit more. So I guess pick your poison.
Well, would you ever even bother with the climb switch?
If I was going up like a road or fire road to get to a cool descent, yeah, then I'd flip it.
Okay, so the Orbea, it's a pretty damn good climber actually. It has a surprisingly firm pedaling feel, even in the open position. Switching to the firm position certainly firms things up, perhaps a bit too much, but you can always go just a portion of the way and get just a little bit of added support. Having the coil shock obviously provides a lot of traction. This bike is pretty well suited for everyday trail use. It's got a pretty fast rolling rear tire, which keeps things moving reasonably well for a long travel 2090.
I don't know, I kind of think whoever buys this bike, you can't care about climbing too much, because I was more winded getting up to like the hard sections we're trying to do. And I mean, some of that you don't have the biggest rear cog of like an Eagle setup, so you're spinning a little harder gear. The suspension never goes fully locked out, which I kind of like, but it moves a little bit more, and the tires grip super well going up and down, so you're going a little slower, it's more weight, and the gearing's not as easy. There's a lot of things going against you climbing, but it'll do it. I mean, if we had a challenge of which one could make it up the hardest, gnarliest thing, I'd probably choose this because it won't slip.
What's the strategy?
We're gonna do multiple laps today in Trinidad, Colorado. And by doing back-to-back testing like this, same day, same trail, same conditions, we're gonna be able to really feel the difference out between the bikes, which is pretty cool. So Steve and I have very similar suspension preferences. We weigh about the same, very close, within a few pounds. And yeah, we're able to swap back and forth pretty quickly.
Orbea. See how this thing fares. Front tire looks like a good starting point.
Orbea. Tell you what, this thing's a fun little ripper. It might be a little bit oversprung right now, so we might try a softer spring rate. But for being a coil sprung bike, it's a very active, playful bike. We talk about playful in the sense that you can pump it and get a good burst of speed out of it, or just kind of jump around the trail a bit. And this bike likes to do that. Very quiet. Between the spring rate and what feels like some very nice damping going on, it stays very composed.
This thing's cool. Like, you know what it's doing the whole time? Yeah, I think Brand's right. It might be like a little stiff in the spring, but bombed it out hard once. So Term needs to eat more cheeseburgers and then he'll bottom it out.
Oh, the Evil Wreckoning. Check out that head tube. Sick, right? Let's do this thing. Oh, big squishy here. The Wreckoning is an interesting one. It is so supple off the top. You have phenomenal rear wheel traction. Where there's a bit of a downside is like, it really feels like you're just kind of, you got a lot to push through when you're wanting to get the bike to do something. It does phenomenally well through the rough stuff in that regard, because of that. You know, of all the bikes I've ridden so far, this one I definitely had the most like, yeehaw, let's get it.
It's weird, like it's slack. It's slack like all the others. They're almost all the same geometry, but I felt like I was a little more forward on this one. And I thought the rear shock was good. It's like super composed, so the front end stayed up, but I wanted to trade that for being composed. I slowed it down some, then I felt like it matched, but it's weird to get a fork to match the rear shock, so
Cool.
Hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, so sick.
29er Sentinel. You
Yeah.
feel that special geo in there?
Transitions definitely achieve something pretty special with this one. I talked about it a lot before. Just the way the stability through a lot of things is second to none, and the way it leans in the turns is just so natural and forgiving that you feel more inspired to do stupider shit.
I'm okay. I'm fine, I'm just sore.
Go too far off that?
Yeah, a little bit. The tire folded and like totally blew up. It really hurt though.
Yeah, this one's a bit sketchy, man.
Yeah.
Gnar compression.
Like, yeah, that's where the Trek tire folded.
Oh, it was right there.
And now I'm folded, blew out, and then I carcassed.
I'm so sore.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm like, it's kind of cool because this bike like really wants to go fast, and then I hit something a little bit faster and the tire just blew out and I like ejected and everything hurts now. The bike's like me now, it's all black and blue. Beat up. The casing's like EXO casing, but I don't know, we make fun of people who say these are like downhill bikes and they're totally not. But they're close, you go pretty fast. And if you go, you know, close to full speed, I feel like the casing is just not stiff enough to really support it.
Kind of a huckabuck sensation.
Good stuff. This certainly has that trail bike, just firm, high in the acid, and kind of feel the whole way down the trail. Constantly fighting a bit of like almost huckabuck sensation off stuff, but I ended up slowing down the rebound a fair amount. I do think a different tire spec would be great, but
it's not quite as good as I hoped it would be. It's like, feels like it stink bugs a little bit. There's some heavy braking here, and it's not steep really, but when you brake really hard and you're on bumps, it like feels like kicks up a bit.
I think maybe running it a bit deeper in the sag might help. Let's find out.
So with any change in spring rate, you also usually need to change the rebound. So you have a little bit less pressure now, which means we're going to use a little bit less rebound. So we're going to give it 2 clicks. Feels good in the squish test. Let's do this thing.
To alleviate some of the really riding high off the top of this travel issues that we were having, some of that skitteriness, we decided to go a little deeper in the sag point. So we went from 28 to 32, 33%, and it rode a lot better.
So far, it's working a lot better.
It just calmed the bike down and allowed it to kind of sit into things a lot better instead of just huckabuck all over the place. So recommendation there is definitely a deeper sag point with the stock volume spacer configuration. Yeah, it definitely improved it.
Man, just in the first part of this ride, this bike is super composed, and I thought the fork would be too soft initially, but it does just fine. It's like really staying up in the travel. It's pretty darn good. In the back end, it's like, it's not harsh, but there's a lot of feedback in it. So in these corners, when there's like a little bit of chatter, you feel that, and it's not gonna like steer you wrong, but yeah, it tells you what's going on.
What'd you think about the Enduro first run?
It's got a lot of good things going for it. One thing that happens when you throw a coil shock on a bike that isn't very progressive is that you tend to have to run a bit firmer of a spring just to get the bottom out support that you need. When you do that, it can introduce a lot of feedback that you normally wouldn't have, possibly with an air shock even. So we're kind of fighting this battle of trying to get the rear end to be a little more sensitive through the rough stuff. And to do that, we've been backing off the compression quite a bit. Right now we're all the way out. After that run, I ended up all the way out and finally starting to get that kind of that rear end feel that we're after. The issue with going to a lighter spring, of course, is that we're going to start to bottom out more often. So, in general though, that bike, like I said, has a lot of good things going for it. It's kind of a really good mixture of plowability and pumpability. Like, I think a lot of bikes are very far one way or the other, and this one kind of strikes a nice balance in between the two. In the past, we've looked at more so how bikes feel on the trail, and today's all about that objective on the clock. How do these bikes stack up? So we're using the LITPro device. It's used in the motocross world. It's a HD GPS unit, so it's more accurate than your typical Garmin or whatever. And it allows you to just get very accurate times. It's so accurate that you can actually zoom in, see the difference in line choices on different bikes. I mean, the results are what they are. It's just like a regular race, right? Like, either you do well or you don't. And we're gonna try to each do very consistent runs in terms of effort, and the way it shakes down is the way it shakes down. Every bike has a starting point that the manufacturers say it works best in.
But the reality is everybody's got a preference and they can all be tweaked and tuned just a little bit.
We're gonna change up some stuff on the Evil because we tried all the bikes with kind of similar bottom brackets, and the Evil has a lot steeper head tube at that setting. We're gonna use the extra low now because we changed the Orbea to a lower setting. It kind of solves some issues.
Did you get the Orbea sorted with the...
The Orbea is cool, yeah. We got the flip chip good, and it feels pretty good. It bottoms out really easily, but it's okay. Like, it'll bottom out, but it's like, okay, that happened. Not like, oh, I'm sketchy.
I think over the past few days of trying the bikes out, filming on them, doing back-to-back runs, we found that sweet spot for us so that we're most confident on the bikes, and it works best for this trail. I'm really curious to see if confidence equates to speed. You know, if being comfortable on a bike equates to just overall a faster time.
What bike do you think is going to be your most confident?
I think the Orbea is going to take it for me.
I think the Specialized might be the hardest bike to ride well, but I would guess that it would be the fastest down the hill.
How does Brosnan do it? He's like this. There we go.
Specialized, dropping in 3, 2, 1, go.
Really going to have to...
Yeah, Steve, that was a good start. Thought he was going easy.
On the run, I felt good. I think this bike lets you push the closest to like a downhill bike, but it's fatiguing. And like run 1 for me, it was pretty good. Terman's doing it for run 5, so I don't know how that'll play out.
3, 2, 1. Specialized, on course.
Nelly! Yeah. You can tell at the end of the day. That was a workout on the legs right there. Fast bike though, I tell you what, man. It's nice having really good tires that are spec for something like what we're doing. I think they make a big difference to the overall machine. Really enjoy the front end of this bike as well. Ohlins did a nice job with the fork.
Is it as rough as you thought it'd be?
Yeah, I mean this bike transmits a lot of feedback back to you, but for the most part I think it's a pretty positive way. You just got to be able to hang on to it.
It's almost a hard bike to love. When you're always on edge in a relationship, it's not a good place to be.
3, 2, 1. Evil on track.
Yeah. Yeah, Evil. Good work. That was pretty awesome. Going for the DH bike, back to the long travel 29er. Going for the DH bike. Going for the DH bike, back to the long travel 29er. Definitely a different world. A lot of people like to talk that trail bikes, long travel bikes can be ridden like a downhill bike, and there's absolutely a difference. Even on a big dog like the Evil. Smooth around, consistent, and ready for more. I think that was a pretty good time. Surprised by how much feedback you get through the ass end compared to a downhill bike, no doubt.
3, 2, 1. Evil on course.
That was pretty fun. It's like this bike goes about it in a totally different way than others.
pretty smooth, but it's cool like the Trek. This bike's really easy to ride. Doesn't get you too tired. And yeah, it doesn't feel like I want to go way faster, but with what you do, it's really good. So
Do you still feel like it's 4th place?
no, I'd be surprised if it was the fastest, but it felt good because late in the day, I felt not really fatigued at all. So that counts for something. It was a smooth run.
So we're keeping a log of which lap, which bike, and just some general notes regarding timing, if everything was all good, if we thought we had a bobble, whatever it might be.
3, 2, 1. Track on course.
Man, tell you what, for as much shit as we've given the track up to this point, it's like actually pretty easy to ride. I actually really enjoyed the suspension. It just seemed to eat up some of the rougher stuff a bit better for me. Downsides on this one, just that front tire feeling a little big from time to time was kind of the biggest one for me. But I think on the clock, I think it'll be a pretty good time actually. A little skatey, a little balloony almost, kind of just like ping 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 off some stuff. I think there's a better front choice, but luckily tires are pretty cheap. And hey, this is a good rear one, so you could buy front tire that you want. The SE5 is pretty sick that Bontrager makes. Run that, and then you have a backup rear. Good to go.
Man, it felt surprisingly good on the whole run. But I took the hits for the bottom outs. But I think the way we had it set up, this bike was so good over all the medium hits. The tires were kind of hard, so you felt everything, but I thought it tracked pretty darn well. It was easy to ride.
Are the tires hard because, did you guys inflate them because they're a little less burly?
It's a couple PSI more than some of the others, just because the casing wiggles a little bit. And there's so much traction, it's not about sheer grip. Like the knobs will stick, and the whole rest of the tire will roll some. So a little more traction isn't the goal, just stability.
What am I thinking? I was actually going through my brain just now, and I was thinking about, as I hop on each bike, how is my riding style going to have to adapt to keep it in control, or to kind of eke the most out of each bike. And you know, with this guy, we got a little bit less travel on reserve, so I think through some of the rougher stuff, I'm just going to have to be a bit more, not necessarily conservative, but just be ready to take some of those hits with my legs. But this one is a pretty awesome corner, and it encourages you to haul ass. I might even have to do a little speed checking on some of the jumps up there.
3, 2, 1. Transition on course.
Watch out, cameraman! Woo!
So it wasn't fun at all?
No, that's a blast, dude. This is a fun bike. It's a bit rough in spots as I keep going lower and lower in travel, but it stays composed through stuff. You know, you can come in what feels like it's just as hot into things, and it eats it up, and as long as your legs have it in you, game on.
Cool. How about the tires?
Yeah, so there were a few times braking into different sections where just didn't really feel 100% in control, like coming down some of the steep bits into corners where you need mentally, for me, to be really confident hitting that turn. I want to check up speed a little bit, and it felt a bit more difficult to do it on this.
Transition on course.
I just rode the transition. It's like it wants to kind of go fast everywhere, but it gets to be a little harsh. It beats you up on some of the bumps when you really go for it. It's not necessarily that bad as far as losing traction, but it was more fatiguing than I thought it would be. Because you know what it's doing, but at the end of that run, I was quite a bit more tired than than like on the Trek on the previous run. So I think it might be a matter of travel or how the shock is, because I felt like I was really pushing against the bottom like a lot, and might be a limit of having so little travel compared to the others.
So on the Orbea, it has the option to go from a low to a lower geometry setting. And in that higher setting, we just weren't quite getting the feel that we wanted. Swapping to that lower setting, which was relatively easy to do, just made the whole bike mesh a lot better with the terrain that we have got going on here today.
3, 2, 1. Orbea on track.
That was a good one. It was pretty good. Like, this thing almost feels opposite of like the Specialized. It certainly bottoms out more, but it holds the line really well, so psyched on that. The surprise for me, like, it was hard to get the Orbea right, and I think that one, it might bottom out the most out of all of them, but it stays composed. So that one I'm like, okay, sweet, just keep smashing it, and it stays stable.
Orbea on course.
Feel that bottom out. Yeah. It felt fast, it felt good. Definitely hit bottom several times, which during the rest of the week maybe we were pushing a little less hard, I don't know, or I was. Yeah, anyway, speed-wise, I think that'll be one of my better laps, which I predicted earlier, but don't know until we see those times rolling.
After a long day, gotta reward yourself.
SWAT
Best thing about
pocket.
Specialized. What are you laughing? I know you want some.
What do you think is your fastest?
Call out what's fast.
I
Come on,
think-
call it out.
I think fastest would be the Specialized. Got
Br-
awesome tires, and it carries speed well, just takes it and goes.
Brandon.
I said Orbea, I'm sticking with it. Let's see.
Following the race yesterday, we're at LITPro headquarters in Temecula, California to see how the results stack up.
I'm gonna go shoot from the hip what I thought was fastest, and I think Specialized fastest, then the Transition, Orbea, Trek, and the Evil.
I think the Orbea is going to rack in at number 1, Specialized number 2, Trek, Transition, and then Evil.
And first for you was the Specialized.
Specialized number 1. All right.
Yeah, 221.62.
It did feel like a pretty solid lap on that guy.
Steve, second place was the Orbea with a 220.12. And first was the Downhill with 213.67.
D8 back up top.
The only thing I was right about was the downhill bike was fast. I'm wrong about everything else. So both of our first runs were the slowest.
Yes. Yeah.
He happened to be on the Evil, and I happened to be on the Specialized.
Yeah. So it is interesting. We talked about how fatigue might be an issue over the course of the day, and that's not at all the case. Like, some of our fastest laps were toward the end of the day.
The Trek was second fastest for you, which is the only kind of...
That's definitely a bit of a
Difference?
surprise, yeah. I would have thought for sure it would be a bit slower. Rolling speed is incredible on that bike, but it is interesting on the Trek, which I was doing well on otherwise. The steeps was the slowest. I think a better front tire could really help there.
The bike I was most wrong about. I thought I would be fastest on the Specialized, but it turns out I was the slowest. Did the Specialized lose time in one section for me, or was it overall not as fast as I thought? Little by little, through Orbea was just, so far it's just been gaining a tenth,
Yeah.
staying the same, gaining a tenth.
Yeah, it's just a little bit the whole way down the
Yeah.
track. There's not like one particular section. One interesting thing is that the bikes, despite feeling so different underneath of us, when it comes down to the clock, I mean, really we're talking a difference of 3 seconds for each of us over the course of that 2 minute 20 run across the entire spectrum, which really isn't that much.
It's a cool takeaway from it, because they're, I think almost regardless of what you think, they're all pretty good bikes, and that's a cool thing for people looking to buy one.
Absolutely. That's a wrap from the 2018 Vital MTB test sessions for Long Travel 29ers. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our site for more details about all of these bikes. We're also curious what you guys want to see us test next. So if you've got a category of bike that you're curious about, let us know in the comments, and also let us know where we should test them.
Oh, the Twix got mangled.
Hey, dude.
Your fly is down.